Okay, let's dive right in. Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, reach for your phone, and nothing. The unthinkable has actually happened. The internet, as we know it, has just gone completely dark. No warning at all, no dramatic countdown, just absolute silence on the digital front. In today's Explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how our modern internet is held together. And honestly, why this doomsday scenario isn't just science fiction. We're looking at the invisible architecture that keeps our whole digital world spinning. And specifically, we're going to uncover the story of the hidden company sitting right behind it all. I mean, imagine the sheer panic of a sudden cascading blackout like that. You try to search for what's happening, but Google won't load. You try to check the news on YouTube, totally offline. You think, okay, I'll just distract myself, but Netflix is gone. And then the real anxiety hits. Online banking, stopped completely. Even critical government sites are just failing to respond. Now, your first instinct would probably be, wow, this is a massive coordinated global cyber attack, right? Like some highly sophisticated state-sponsored hack that just took down the grid. But what if I told you the internet hasn't been hacked at all?
The reality is actually much simpler and honestly a lot more staggering. One company has simply flipped a switch. Just let that sink in for a second. Because when we think about who controls the internet, our minds immediately jump to the giants, right? Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. We just assume they hold the keys to the kingdom all by themselves. But behind these massive tech conglomerates is another entity entirely. A company so incredibly powerful that literally millions of websites depend on it every single second of every single day. Yet, most people walking down the street, they've never even heard its name.
Section 1. The Hidden Digital City. The Internet you don't see.
To really wrap our heads around how one unknown company could hold so much sway, we have to peel back the layers of the web. We need to step away from the familiar apps we tap on our screens every day and venture down into this mysterious, bustling engine room that just operates quietly underneath the whole thing. You see, you can think of the internet exactly like a massive metropolis. Up top, we have the surface internet. The websites, the apps, the social feeds, the online stores, these are basically the buildings and businesses of our digital city. It's what you and I interact with. But beneath every functioning city, you have this massive network of roads, electricity grids, and water pipes. If you shut off the water or rip up the roads, well, those towering skyscrapers and pissing businesses instantly collapse. The internet has that exact same hidden plumbing, and almost nobody talks about it.
So what exactly makes up those digital roads and water pipes? Well, it's an incredibly complex, totally invisible network. We are talking about massive data centers just humming with servers. Fiber optic cables literally stretching all the way across the bottom of our oceans to connect entire continents. Internet exchanges, content delivery networks, and just vast fields of cloud computing. Now, why does this matter to you? Because every single time you upload a personal photo, every time you send an email to your boss, or sit down to stream a movie, that data travels through this unseen global machinery. Thousands of physical machines have to work together in perfect harmony every single second just to load a single web page.
And that brings us to our hidden architect, Cloudflare. This is the company that quietly became one of the absolute biggest foundational pillars of that invisible network. You see, Cloudflare's mission wasn't to become a household name like Facebook or Amazon. They had a much more foundational goal: just make the internet faster, safer, and more reliable. And it's genuinely fascinating when you look at it. Whenever you open a website today, there's a really good chance Cloudflare is the unseen force helping deliver it to your screen. They speed up the loading times, they keep businesses online, and they do all of this while remaining completely invisible to the average user. But delivering the internet is really only half the job. The other half is protecting it. Every single day, malicious actors launch just enormous cyber attacks. And we aren't just talking about a couple of hackers typing away in a basement somewhere. We're talking about massive, automated systems sending billions of fake requests every single second. And their goals are actually remarkably simple. 1, crash websites by just completely overwhelming them. 2, steal sensitive information. And 3, cause widespread digital chaos. This isn't a rare event. It's a constant, daily threat that literally never sleeps. So the really crucial point here is how we actually survive this daily barrage. And this is exactly where Cloudflare acts as the invisible shield. Cloudflare essentially sits right in front of all this incoming web traffic. It analyzes the data flowing in and acts as this massive, intelligent barrier. Long before malicious traffic or a billion fake requests can ever reach your favorite website or your banking portal, Cloudflare intercepts and blocks it. And the most brilliant part of all of this, because it happens in literal milliseconds, you, the user, never even notice. When perfect digital protection works, it's entirely invisible.
What's truly staggering, though, is the sheer scale of who relies on that shield. It's not just a couple of tech blogs. We are talking about banks guarding your life savings, hospitals managing critical patient care, entire governments, major news organizations, universities, small family businesses, and massive global corporations. Millions of entities rely on this exact same network for their daily survival. But, you kind of have to ask yourself, when this many critical institutions rely on one single company's infrastructure just to stay online, that staggering level of importance brings with it an enormous, maybe even unprecedented amount of responsibility.
Section 2. The weight of power. Who controls the web?
So, we're stepping away from the technical mechanics now and getting into a very real, very complex philosophical dilemma. Because in the digital age, centralized power is a massive point of controversy. When one invisible architect holds the keys to so much of the internet's infrastructure, the decisions they make echo all the way around the globe. And it leads us to this incredibly thought-provoking question. Should a company protect every website, even controversial ones? This isn't just some hypothetical. If a private infrastructure company has the power to shield a site from attacks, keeping it online, do they also have the right to just drop that shield? Should a plumbing provider decide who gets to participate in the digital world, or does that authority belong strictly to governments, courts, and lawmakers?
Cloudflare actually finds itself caught right in the crossfire of this debate, facing heavy criticism from completely opposing sides. On one hand, you have critics arguing that it should do more. They call for active control, basically arguing that a company with this much immense power has a moral obligation to pull the plug on harmful or highly controversial content. But then, on the other hand, opposing critics argue it already does too much. They're calling for strict neutrality. They argue that internet infrastructure should be exactly like the phone company or the water company, providing a fundamental service without judging the user. Now, we aren't here to take a side in this explainer, but this exact dilemma reveals a much bigger question about who ultimately governs the modern web.
Section 3. The fragile future. The pieces keeping us online. To really understand the internet, we have to zoom out and look at the macro-level structure. Because while the internet feels vast, infinite, and perfectly decentralized to us as everyday users, the reality behind the curtain is actually quite different. It relies on a surprisingly small group of companies to keep the lights on. It's this invisible machine made up of components like cloud providers hosting the data, domain registries managing the web addresses, internet exchanges routing the traffic, submarine cable operators maintaining those physical wires at the bottom of the sea, and content delivery networks like Cloudflare ensuring it all moves quickly and safely. These are the hidden pillars holding up our entire digital lives.
And that brings us to a rather sobering realization. Remove enough pieces, and the internet stops. Because this infrastructure relies on such a highly concentrated group of companies, the digital world is actually far more fragile than it appears on your smartphone screen. If just a few of these hidden pillars were to experience a catastrophic failure, or, say, coordinated to flip that switch we talked about at the very beginning, the entire global network would begin slowing down, fracturing, or simply coming to a complete halt.
And the strain on these pillars, it's only going to grow. Artificial intelligence is creating an unprecedented surge in internet traffic right now. Plus, we have billions of new devices, from smart cars to smart refrigerators, coming online every single year. Meanwhile, cyberattacks are becoming highly sophisticated, utilizing that very same AI to find vulnerabilities. So what you should really take away from this is that in the coming decades, the people who maintain and protect this infrastructure are going to become far more vital than the people simply creating new apps. The future of the digital world completely belongs to those who keep it running.
So, we come back to the ultimate question. Does one company own the internet? Well, strictly speaking, the answer is no. It's a shared, global network made up of countless organizations, service providers, and infrastructure companies. But, as we've seen throughout this explainer, while no one holds the actual deed to the internet, a very small handful of hidden companies quietly hold the whole shebang together. Millions of us depend on them every single day, completely unaware they even exist.
I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought directly from our source material today. The biggest powers are often the ones you never see. The strongest foundations in our world are almost always hidden right beneath the surface. So the next time you sit down to stream a movie, check your bank balance, or simply load up a web page, ask yourself, whose invisible roads are you traveling on, and what happens if they ever decide to close them? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the hidden systems that quietly shape our world.